Teammates! All right, first and foremost, if this is your first time listening to the Move Swiftly podcast, welcome to the show. Welcome to the number one show on innovative teamwork. Great to have you. Looking forward to having you back for more. To my regular listeners, you already know how we get down over here. We get right to the point. And today, we have quite a few things to discuss, quite a few things to discuss. And the kind of the underlining theme to everything we're going to be talking about today is are you ready for the growth? Have you put yourself in a position where you are constantly growing and you're serving the next generation of people in terms of what is the reality for them? All right. Very careful. I'm being very careful with my words because it's very important for you to understand you have to change with the times. And again, you regular listeners have heard me say this on multiple occasions. We're probably at close to 900 episodes at this point. If you do not change with the times will change you. Let me tell you how I what kind of got me on this topic is earlier this week, and I've always said I've been on record saying this on multiple occasions is for those of you, if this is your first time listening to me or first time listening to the Move Swiftly podcast, understand that I teach for what I do. I teach this brand new school by the name of Center for Creative Education in West Palm Beach, and it's because it's a brand new school. I'm asked to do a lot, and the kids that go there, the school, the basically the bottom line to the school is the school was built based on the concept of doing something different than your typical public school system. We look at the numbers, we monitor the literacy rates of the kids in our surrounding schools in Palm Beach County, and we built a school that speaks to those issues. So when it comes to sending the kids that actually come to this school, they're all coming from a lot of different situations, a lot of rough situations, a lot of blended families, a lot of single parent households, all that stuff. So the teachers that they're around, we serve as a highly influential members in their life, highly influential adults in their lives, because what we're building at the Center for Creative Education is so different than what you normally get at a public school. And for you to actually send your kid there, you're actually being inconvenienced. You as a parent have to be inconvenienced in a great way. So we get a special group of kids, and the relationship that we have with these kids is something that's very, very special. So all that being said, I have gotten to know, I've been there now. This is coming up my third year, going to be about 3 years since I've been there now. And since that time, I've gotten to know the kids really, really well. We have conversation, they trust me and things of that nature, right? So I remember we were having lunch. I was having lunch with them, a third grader, 35-year-old. I having lunch with a third grader in the middle of the day. And you would not believe the amount of things that I learned by simply just talking to a third grade kid. It's amazing. You would never, of all the books I read and all the podcasts I listen to, of all the great people that I interviewed and have, accomplished many, many different things and all the great things that this show has even done, right? I'm learning so much. I learned so much in like maybe a 10 to 15-minute conversation with a third grader that I do with several of them, right? So I was having a conversation with them, and I was thinking back to when I was in third grade. And back when I was in third grade, I was old enough at that point, if I'm not mistaken, to I had my own room. I was blessed enough to be in a house that I had my own room, and eventually I convinced my parents to put a TV in my room, a television, the actual television set that had like the big bulky things. It wasn't a flat screen or anything like that. The big bulky television set that had a remote control, and you switch your channels and all that. Sometimes it got cable. We had, and to get cable, this was before the streaming services, right? To actually get cable, I needed to get the wire and twist it into the cable cord and then find a way around my bed and plug it up if you had to get extra wire and all that. I had to do all of that to watch TV and stuff like that. And one of the things, just kind of talking to them while I was at lunch, I was reminded of something that my sister actually suggested back during those days, back when I was her age. I'm not, excuse me, not when I was my sister's age. My sister was born 5 years. She's 5 years older than me. So back when I was their age, the student's age, I was thinking back to that time when I had a TV in my room, and my sister actually suggested that before I go to school every day, I get to watch cartoons while I'm getting dressed and all that kind of stuff. And the amount of TV that I watched, seeing that there was a TV in my room and all that kind of stuff, I I was reminded of those times as I was talking to the kids, right? So and this is just to make conversation because, again, as teachers and students and teachers and students and all that stuff, we're learning from each other. It works both ways. Students learn from teachers, teachers learn from students. In fact, I would even argue in many ways that sometimes we as teachers learn a little more from our students, to be 100% honest with you, because we're growing and they're growing up in a society, they're growing up in a situation that's just different from ours, and the reality of certain things are just different from ours, right? So we're sitting at lunch, and I asked some of the third, it was like three third graders, and I just kind of went at a round table, and I asked them, all right, so I tried to ask them a question that I thought they would be able to relate to, and stuff like that. And I said, hey, so what's your favorite cartoon character? Drew a blank. What's your favorite cartoon character? And I was going around the table. I said, hey, what's your favorite cartoon character? And none of them really could give me an answer. And then the answer that they did give is what actually inspired this episode, and actually an article that I'm going to be writing about it as well. Was they said they started giving off names of their favorite YouTube series. Right? I can't remember the names. I remember I took a screenshot of it, but they all had their different her preferences. I'll say they had their different preferences, and they had their different favorite YouTube stars, and some of them were cartoons, some of them may have been some, maybe cooking show or so, whatever it is they found on YouTube. And it hit me at that moment. It hit me at that moment that seeing that I post multiple videos of YouTube on YouTube every single day, the responsibility of being a YouTuber, something that wasn't even a phrase back when I was their age, but the responsibility of being a YouTuber increased a whole lot. And as a person, like I said, as a person who posts multiple videos on YouTube every single day, I actually automate this. I spend at least about maybe once a week. I'll spend maybe an hour or 2 hours a day making sure all this stuff is getting like I batch all this work. And it's not me just posting on YouTube all day or spending the whole day posting on YouTube. It's actually me automating it and making sure everything is coming out every single day. All the stuff is coming out throughout the week, right? And I thought to myself, I said, man, now when it comes to the times that we're living in, when it comes to the world that we're living in, our responsibility to the kids, to the young people, when it comes to what you put out there on YouTube or what you put out there for the general to see and the public to see, that responsibility is a huge one. Because nowadays the kids do not necessarily have television sets in their rooms. Now they have television sets on their phones. They have basically television sets on their iPads or on their cameras or whatever it is. And you never know who's going to be watching. You never know what the situation is going to be. You never know what it is you put. Now, again, you never know who's going to be receiving the information, or who's going to be liking it, or what it's going to be doing for somebody else. And the reason I'm bringing all this to your attention in today's full episode, in a full long episode, is for you to understand that this is an opportunity. All right. Whenever we're dealing with change, whenever we're realizing that something is brand new, and whenever, there's that revelation that hit me the same way it hit me when I'm having this conversation with these kids. And in fact, before I get into that point, let me just also kind of further make my point in terms of how absolutely, like, how much YouTube is actually affecting our kids, and how much of a reality YouTube actually is when it comes to what our kids are seeing and what our kids are paying attention to, and what is developing their mindset, what's developing their views, what's developing everything that they're about. All that kind of stuff is I had that conversation at lunch with a group of kids, and I was like, again, I'm having the same revelation I'm having with you guys, where I'm excited. I'm telling them, hey, I'm going to record a podcast episode episode about this. You guys just, you gave me some content so I could, give my listeners some tips about how to put themselves out there, all that kind of stuff. I was that excited, but I continued to put it to the test. I didn't just stop at that group of girls that was sitting. It was no, actually, it was 2 girls and 1 boy. I didn't stop at those 3 students that were sitting at the table. I actually waited. I believe it was like the next day, in which I waited, and then I asked another class member, another one of the students, "Hey, who's your favorite cartoon character?" I ran through the same survey. Who's your favorite cartoon character? They had no answer, and then eventually I asked, "Who's your favorite YouTuber?" And they had several answers. They had multiple answers of channels and what they're all about, and the whole thing the same way. Like, if you were to ask me that question growing up, I would say, the Tasmanian Devil has been my favorite cartoon character. I've loved him not because I even necessarily liked Looney Tunes, or I'm not even sure if the Tasmanian Devil even had a show. But I just love the spinning around and the running around, the crazy things that Taz did. And that kind of reminded me of the typical football player being all crazy and running around and all that kind of stuff. So that's what made him my favorite cartoon character. Now, when I asked them that, then like I said, it was the same thing. It was like, okay, I have a favorite YouTuber, and that's when I accepted it. And what brought me to today's message in terms of first of all, giving you the dose of reality of how real YouTube is, and how when it comes to what you put out there, and when it comes to developing that following, when it comes to developing a group of a community of like-minded people, when it comes to developing a sense of who exactly it is you want to serve, who your products are going to, and all that kind of stuff. All that stuff is important to filter out as you're crafting your message to put out there. All that stuff is incredibly important. So when we deal with that reality, all right, when you're dealing with that sense of reality, the question now needs to become, how are you going to put yourself out there? What community of people am I going to attract? What services am I going to offer? And how am I going to package it up and make sure the message is getting out there as often as it possibly can? All right. I want to make sure I'm clear on the record of saying that. It is not about making one video and then hoping it gets viral. It's not about just putting some bullshit out there and just doing it for the views, doing it for the clicks, doing it for the likes, and doing it just to put bullshit out there and maybe get monetized and all that. What it's really about, because now we have young people and young kids paying attention to YouTube and are locked in on it the same way you may have been locked in on your favorite TV show. You may have been locked in on something that you really enjoyed as a kid. Because of that reality, now the question needs to become, what is it am I going to do to serve people? How am I going to serve people? And the responsibility I need to take to make sure the message is being put out there in the way that the message needs to be put out there. That has to be a question, and that is not a burden. That is not something that you have the luxury of ignoring. Now that has to be something that's looked at as an opportunity, and taken advantage of the opportunity that you have to build this group of people, to build a group of like-minded people, and to ultimately serve this group of people in a way that no one else is serving them. All right. You have got to be incredibly unique. You have to figure out what's going to be unique about an overall message that you want to give out there to people. Again, you don't have to look you can look at this podcast that you're listening to right now. You can either listening to or viewing it on YouTube. Understand the development of this show. The development of the show that you are tuning into right now was about making sure my stuff is being put on the platform that it needs to be put on. All right. So I'll close you out, and I'll just give you, again, I'll use the example of how this show developed to becoming the #1 show on Innovative Team. Okay, I'll give you an example of how the show developed over the years, as from a show that only came out, it was literally once a week was a new episode, and now there's multiple episodes. If you actually are listening to this on YouTube, it probably feels like multiple episodes are coming out every single day now, not just one episode. It feels like every episodes are coming out multiple episodes are coming out every single day, depending on the platform and all that kind of stuff, right? So number one, when it comes to how it developed like this, and the reason I'm telling this story, so you understand what we've already established the importance of YouTube, but now for you to understand how you're going to develop so your content comes out as frequently as possible, is number one, you have got to hire a coach. You've got to either hire a coach or you got to join some sort of mastermind. You got to, go out, look at the, and this is very easy to do nowadays because we have social media, we have YouTube, we have Google, we have a lot of things in which you can search up and find people that are doing the work, that have been doing the work that you are aspiring to do. And they've been doing it a whole lot longer. They've been able to figure out tactics in which they can adapt to this new world. And it's important that you pay someone out of your own pocket. All right, pay someone some money to help coach you up, teach you on how to adapt to this new world, and what are the blind spots, what are the things that you may be missing, that you may not be seeing, because obviously you're so busy developing the content and putting the work out there. So this happened for me, maybe I'll say, man, now about 3 years ago now. 3 years ago now, once I hired Dre Baldwin as a coach. And I'll actually give, because I've spoken about him quite a bit on this show, and he's actually been on the show. The name of this episode is titled Work on Your Fucking Game. All right. That's the name of this company. And that's what that's the title that I gave to his episode when he was on. Right. So I paid to be a part of his mastermind. And at this particular stage, this podcast was only on Apple Podcasts. It was only coming out on Anchor and Apple. It might have been coming out on Spotify, but the bottom line is that it was only coming out on places in which you can only listen, like you could only hear the audio version of it. It was never a podcast in which they had a visual to it like it does now, right? So I remember a specific conversation I was having with him, and I was telling him about how frequently the podcast comes out, how frequently new episodes come out, and all that kind of stuff. And it was only, I believe at the time, I was putting out a new episode. It was every Monday. And if I'm not mistaken, it was every Monday and Wednesday, or every Monday and Thursday, or something like that. It was only twice a week. And he looked at me, he goes, okay, so what about all the other 5 days? In a dead ass serious look, like, what about all the other 5 days? And it was from that point, and he says this all the time. He says he's not going to ever do the work for you. He will point out certain things in your business, but he's never going to actually do the work for you. If you come into his program willing to learn and willing to put in the work, then it'll be beneficial for you, which is the way it should be when it comes to coaching. No one's going to actually do the work for you. That's just some advice for you when you're out there looking for a business coach. you know he didn't do the work for me. He just pointed that out. And then from that point, I started recording myself every single day and putting it out there. First, it started off as, I believe it was like coffee and conversation, until I got really good at it, until I really started to develop. And now you hear me every single day as One Crookshank, your one and only Move Swiftly speaker, checking in for a daily Move Swiftly thought, giving you a perspective on teamwork that you will not get everywhere else. You hear me say that every single day, every single morning. And once I was able to establish on doing that, then I started turning those into podcast episodes that come out every single day. I think I actually started out only like 5 days a week. And then eventually it got to the point where it's like, look, the stuff is coming out on YouTube so frequently, it's too hard for me to go back and try to, because if I speak on a current event, I don't want it to come on the podcast too late and all that kind of stuff. So I fixed the structural issue and I focused on getting monetized on YouTube, which happened about a little less than a year ago now. And once I got to the point where my YouTube channel became monetized, then I discovered Podmatch. And I found Podmatch because I was looking to be a guest on another show. And once I discovered Podmatch, now you start to see the influx of more guests coming on the show. As you see every single Monday, from Monday through Friday, there's a brand new guest on the show. You see clips coming out on YouTube. You see the episodes being posted on, if you're listening to this on the actual podcast feed, you see multiple things coming out every single day. And now the influence, if I want to take you back to what I had discovered when it comes to those, those the third grade classroom, and the students that I teach every day, when it comes to actually being on YouTube, now you have a message that can develop and a message that's going to stand the test of time. Because when those kids grow up, which tends to happen, all right, when those kids grow up that again do Mr. Oswald when they were in third grade and they see what he's doing on YouTube, and I kind of jokingly tell them this all the time because when it comes to my YouTube channel, sometimes it's not the best stuff for elementary school kids to hear because I swear a lot, especially if I'm talking on a certain topic. I start dropping a lot of F-bombs and swearing, which I am working on, by the way. I am working on making sure I'm not having such a potty mouth. I can't guarantee that I'm just going to stop cussing cold turkey, but I am working towards making it so I don't go too crazy. But depending on the current event that I'm discussing, I can't make any real promises about just, hey, I'm just going to stop cussing in general because some of the shit that happens in this world requires some fucking F-bombs, some extreme F-bombs that I can't even control when I really start getting into the subject. But anyway, that's besides the point. The main point that we have to take away from this episode is changing with the times, understanding what's the reality of the situation, what's the reality of the world, and what's the reality that the people of the next generation are dealing with. And if you could think back to when you were, again, depending on who I'm speaking of, I'm personally 35 years old. So speaking to my generation, if you could think back to when you were in high school and when you were in middle school and all that stuff, and the internet was available, but it wasn't the bane of our existence. It wasn't the end all be all. It wasn't the final product. It was just something you actually maybe had to go to a computer. You had to, develop or get an Ethernet cord and get working. It wasn't like literally on your fingertips and you were being judged daily on likes and all that kind of stuff. Back in those days, imagine now you have access to the internet wherever you are and you have your mind still, your logic and your mind still haven't developed yet. Understand that that's the reality of the kids now. And it's on you. It's on you. In fact, I remember I was actually just having a conversation with my sister. This was back, I'm recording this the first day in September. So about a month ago from this recording, when I was at a family reunion and my nephew's going to be 13 years old. He's going to be 13 years old in about a month now, 2 months now. And I remember actually having a conversation with my sister about who his favorite player was. And he said, Kobe. Like, wait a minute, Kobe Bryant, he, Kobe Bryant, first of all, the late Kobe Bryant retired after he was born. And then he retired around the time he was born, if I'm not mistaken. He retired around that time. And then a couple of years later, he tragically passed away. So, my nephew never really got a chance to see him play the way I played. But for some reason, that's still his favorite player. And then my sister interjected by saying, look, this is a YouTube generation. They can look up whatever name they hear, they can look that up on YouTube, and all of a sudden they learn from it. And understanding that you don't have to be Kobe Bryant to become a YouTuber. You don't have to be famous necessarily or famous to the public, whatever, to become a influential YouTuber and influence the group of people that you want to influence. Again, I've never met Kobe personally, but I could almost guarantee that if he was around, he would publicly be proud of that. He would love the fact that a 13-year-old kid who's playing for multiple basketball teams and is accelerating at his age would be able to come look him up on YouTube, and that probably would have led to him doing more than he already did. And that's the way you have to be taking it in whatever profession or whatever world, whatever it is you're trying to affect, whatever change it is you're trying to make sure you're making that change and understand that the resources and the things that are made available to you are there. They're there. Do not let a moment go by where you're not taking advantage of these resources that you did not have when you were younger. Change with those times. Don't look at it as a situation where it's, I'm not on you, I'm too good, I'm too grown to be on YouTube or any bullshit like that. Look at it as an opportunity for you to affect the young people to become a leader in your world. And there's so many people now that are growing and building their businesses and building their brands, building their organizations based on the community and the things that are made possible because of the internet. You need to be one of them. You need to be one of them that's at least making that effort. The same way Dre told me, look, Oswald, you have a great message. You very well, you can publicly speak. You can do a lot of great things. It's criminal for you to only be putting out a new episode twice a week. your shit needs to be coming out 7 days a week, 24 hours. Your stuff needs to be coming out all the time. And that's all a mindset issue. And the real question is that I'll close you out with is, do you believe strongly enough in your stuff that you're willing to put this message out there every single day, multiple times a day, and make sure it's something that everyone has access to? That's what you got to take away from this episode. And that's what you got to walk away understanding. I have the power. Say it with me. I have the power. I have the strength. I have the ability to put it out there and to influence the next group, the next generation of people in a positive way. All right. Fellow teammates, continue to move swiftly. We will talk more soon.